This is Keys to the Shop Founder Friday edition. Today we're talking with Dorian Bolden, founder of Beyu Caffe in Durham, North Carolina. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFirio. I'm your host for the show. Really happy you decided to join me today for this Founder Friday episode. We're talking with Dorian Bolden, who's the founder of Beyu Caffe, which is a restaurant, cafe, jazz club, and cocktail concept in Durham, North Carolina. And this is a really dynamic company, and it's a dynamic interview too. This was one of those interviews that the more I discover about Dorian's story and the story of Beyu Caffe, the more excited I get for what they're up to next in launching a really coffee-focused cafe concept on Duke University campus in what was originally the Joe Van Gogh store at Duke University campus. Some of us heard about this story earlier this year and the controversy surrounding that. We do touch on that a little bit in this conversation, but this is a super interesting story about a man bringing his community together through his business, and you're not going to want to miss this. So I'm really excited to share it with you. Now, before we get started, I do want to thank our sponsors here at Keys to the Shop, starting with Prima Coffee. Now, Prima Coffee is a specialty coffee equipment supplier based out of Louisville, Kentucky. And from the beginning of their company, they've set out to make the best coffee brewing equipment available to the general public and professionals alike. Their focus is on curating the best equipment for every need. From grinders to espresso machines to under-counter refrigeration, it's pretty much anything you can think of that you would need to properly outfit your home bar or your cafe. So they put a big emphasis on having the expertise to help their customers get the right gear to fit every situation. And so if you're thinking about expanding your shop or you're starting a shop, this is the place to go, prima-coffee.com. Visit them at prima-coffee.com and see what they can do to help you get the right gear to fit your situation. I've always enjoyed working with Prima. Fantastic folks there. Reach out to them, tell them Keys to the Shop sent you, and my thanks to Prima Coffee for their support of Keys to the Shop. I also want to thank Pacific Foods. They're the folks behind the Pacific Barista Series line of non-dairy performance beverages that are designed specifically for professional baristas and the standards for excellence that they demand. Whether you're talking about almond milk, soy, coconut rice, or oat milk, which is their newest product, its ability to take the heat from steaming, produce an unmatched silky texture, and keep the flavor balance focused on coffee makes it a perfect choice for your cafe's menu. And of course, Pacific is all over the place supporting the specialty coffee community, and they demonstrate this by listening to and serving the needs of real specialty coffee professionals. So go to pacificfoods.com, that's pacificfoods.com, and find out how the Barista Series line of non-dairy performance beverages can help elevate the non-dairy options in your cafe. So thank you very much to Pacific for their support of Keys to the Shop. All right, so today we're talking with Dorian Bolden, who is the owner and founder of Beyu Caffe, which is designed to be the ultimate community gathering place, coffee house, restaurant, music venue in Durham, North Carolina. He is an alumnus of Duke University and relocated back to Durham in 2005 after working as a financial advisor with Bank of America after college. Through his work at Beyu Caffe, Dorian has collaborated with dozens of local organizations and events, including Duke Performances, American Underground, North Carolina Comic-Con, the Southern Documentary Film Festival, Urban Hope Ministries, and the Department of Jazz Studies at North Carolina Central University. Having successfully opened and operated Beyu Caffe in the immediate aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis, and then transitioning to property ownership and relocating in 2016 due to rising rental costs in downtown Durham, Dorian is passionate about working with local visionaries and aspiring entrepreneurs on innovative strategies to preserve and strengthen their culturally vibrant and diverse community, combating gentrification, and getting community financial support for projects. And Dorian and his wife, Tanisha, have 2 elementary school children, and you cannot ask for a more inspirational person to talk to. I was really just enthralled by this talk with Dorian And knowing what I know through this interview and through researching Beyu Caffe, it just makes me even more excited for the kind of coffee shop that is opening up on Duke University's campus. It's their newest coffee house concept. Is called Beyu Blue, and that is actually going to be opening today. If you're listening to this on the 31st, which is where this episode airs, August 31st is the grand opening of Beyu Blue. It's going to be quite the party. There's going to be a ribbon cutting at the Bryan Center. There's going to be the international songwriter and singer Kenny Wesley, who's also known as the Soulful Nerd, performing at this thing, and it's just going to be a great celebration. And I think after hearing this interview, you're going to be really excited about this too, about the kind of values and vision and people that are behind Beyu Blue and Beyu Caffe. So yeah, there's a lot here. A lot is talked about, and I think this is really going to hit home for those of you who especially want to make a difference in your communities with your businesses. Here's a guy and his team that are absolutely crushing it when it comes to that. So here now is my conversation with the founder of Beyu Caffe, Dorian Bolden. Hello, Dorian. Welcome to Keys to the Shop. I'm excited to have you on the show today.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Definitely a pleasure to be here.
I'm excited that I got an opportunity to talk to you, considering the just immense amount of work that is all around you right now. You're getting ready to open a second location, right?
Yeah, we're going full force to open our second retail location on the campus of Duke University. And so we're slated for our grand opening on August 31st. So we are definitely under the wire, 2 weeks to go. And just trying to make sure I stay focused and get the doors open on time.
Well, that'll be amazing. I think this conversation between you and I will be aired on the grand opening. It'll be a great convergence.
Oh, that's really cool, man. Yeah. I didn't realize it.
Sometimes things just work out. I'm really excited to dive into your business because you and I were chatting a little bit before we started recording this interview, and I was telling you that some of the things that just struck me was at Beyu Caffe how dynamic a concept it is. You've got the coffee shop, the restaurant, the bar, as a live jazz club. And, it's so impressive and immersive. Just even looking at social media, I feel like I'm there. And it's not necessarily typical for the people who are, I would say, in this audience are very, very coffee focused. And so this is a really great opportunity to kind of dive into your origin story. Like how did you land on this concept, and like how did you start getting into the idea of being an entrepreneur? Where did it all start for you?
So it actually started when I was working in New York. I was a senior financial advisor for Bank of America Investment Services, or at the time when I first started, there was a small discount brokerage firm called Quick and Riley, and they were the brokerage unit for a pretty nice sized bank, Boston Financial. And so here it is. I'm going through this program. I've been in the industry for going on like my third year. And then all of a sudden, we're going through a merger with Bank of America Investment Services. And some of the people that were really close to me that, helped me along the way, that really taught me a lot of what I knew in finance, were given like a 6-month severance and were let go. And it was that moment that really just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth when going through that merger. But simultaneously, while all that happened, I also got news that my father had fallen ill very suddenly. And being in New York, I'd flown down to Atlanta, and sadly, he had passed away rather quickly. And I was able to say goodbye. But I think those two events that happened within like 60 days were just, they were huge. And one end, it taught me that tomorrow is not guaranteed. And on the other end, I think it kind of birthed this notion of wanting to work for myself, just realizing that sometimes in that corporate culture, I didn't feel that, the story of pension plans, they'll take care of you and you'll be taken care of if you work hard for the company for a long time. I just didn't feel the notion that was true. And so when I was trying to figure out kind of what was going to be the next step, I was like, well, I'd always been in retail ever since I was in high school. I always held down a job kind of since I was 15. And I think looking back on all my past jobs, from the movie theater to Subway to Chick-fil-A, I always loved working in retail and the hospitality industry. I just love, making a person's day better and brighter. And I think I began to appreciate that fact of, there's nobility behind that, especially when I started seeing a lot of the clients that were coming through when I worked in finance. And so, I decided to say, there was always this coffee shop, or rather a coffee house that was in Atlanta that I would always go to when I was in school and would visit in Atlanta. It's called Caffe Intermezzo's, which if you've ever been to Atlanta, and even now I think it's around for over 40 years. And It's like stepping into, like 16th century or 17th century European a coffee house with this beautiful wood interior, and it had like this old feel, and the menu was just pretty massive. I mean, all types of coffee and coffee liqueurs and teas, and so it allowed me to just escape. And I think what was then interesting was that the location of it being in downtown Atlanta was around a lot of the AUC schools, the Atlanta University colleges. And so you had a lot of people of color coming in from Morehouse, Spelman, Morris Brown. And so here it is, you have this really kind of white European model of a coffee house, also around the HBCUs that are in the heart of Atlanta. And you saw this beautiful mixture of people. Nice. And just the culture itself. And it kind of took on its own feel of just urban elegance. And that's kind of when I knew it was like I could just be me, and I felt comfortable. And so BU was kind of how it came about, where, I wanted to create a spot like that. That's what I knew I wanted to create when I leave the world of finance and step out into the world of the unknown.
That's really a beautiful story. Like that. What I experienced, like I said earlier, it seems like you were just describing that thing. It seems like you've accomplished that with your business, but you took that inspiration and you needed to learn about like how to do it. And you went on this journey of just working with the intent to learn about how to run this business that you just got a vision for. How did that start? Because a lot of people were just like, well, I'm just going to start a business, or I'm going to read about it. And you decided to take up to, I think it was like 4 years to work for different companies and like take notes and learn who you needed to be and what you needed to do to make this thing a reality.
And it was funny that, and I didn't have any money. And so it was, that was also another hindrance to kind of slow me down. And so, I think when I left finance in 2005, and when I decided to leave, I had already started working part time at a local coffee shop in New York, and I knew I was going to be leaving like permanently, but I wanted to kind of let me make sure before I leave this world of finance. So of all the places I was trying to work, I couldn't get a job at a coffee shop. Like Starbucks wouldn't even hire me. It's weird. I applied and never heard back from anybody. And I applied to another coffee shop. I remember on the Upper East Side, it's called C Cafe, for Yes Coffee in Italian. And it was the luckiest thing and was meant to be, because I didn't know much about coffee. I didn't even drink coffee until my senior year in college as an RA, so I could stay awake.
Nice.
One morning. And here it is in college, in New York. I had a couple of caramel macchiatos or something at Starbucks, sweet drinks. But here, they actually roasted their own coffee. And I learned about coffee the way people learn about wine. And I got immersed in why they were so into coffee culture, from where it was grown to how it was roasted, the beans. And you really learned about just the history and the importance of coffee from a historical standpoint, of how it applies to everybody's just daily lives. And that's where I really fell in love. I almost, you think about even in finance, where, the financial, finance is so vital to our well-being, to make sure we can provide for our well-being. but the same way as coffee is a part of our daily lives as well. And I think that was the thing that I really began loving. So yeah, I worked at a coffee shop and started learning about coffee that way, and decided to come down to North Carolina, follow this pretty girl who I met in college, who's now my wife. And that was the best decision I ever made, to come down to North Carolina. And that's where I kind of perfected my barista skills and started doing latte art, visiting trade shows, especially Coffee Association of America trade shows, and just really started working on my business plan, to try to figure out what's the thing I want to do. And so I think even part of it might even been a little just uncertainty in terms of how do I put all this together. And, from there, I ended up working as a bartender, because I knew I wanted to kind of learn what it would be to offer cocktails. And, I guess my final job was really working at Panera Bread, because it was the closest concept that I could think of that was still a cafe that would offer some sort of food, but it was kind of a casual dining. It wasn't necessarily upscale, but it wasn't fast food.
Right.
And when I worked there, that's when I really got immersed in terms of the systems of how they use their POS system, to kind of an inventory management system, to just kind of really understanding the restaurant model too, so that I could kind of combine that with the coffee knowledge. So, I'm working maybe 2-3 jobs at the time now, between a barista, between working at Panera, and then finally I made the switch to work at Panera full time as an assistant manager and then catering coordinator. And eventually it just got to a point where we went through kind of another tough moment where my mother-in-law, my wife's mom, passed, and it was at that moment I just decided to say, okay, let's do it.
Like, you have enough knowledge. This is time. This is the sign. We're going to go for it.
Yeah, and I think kind of the way the transition happened when my mother-in-law passed, and it was a tough time for my wife. She and her mom were really, really close, and I think seeing that happen after my dad had just passed, 3 years earlier, that it was just kind of like it was kind of a little bit of a reminder that tomorrow's not guaranteed. And I think it really was fear that kept just, okay, let me work on my business plan a little bit more. Let me go work this job, and let me go learn this. Okay, wait, let me go learn this now. And I think a lot of it was just continuously thinking there was so much more that I needed to learn, as opposed to just saying, you know what, just go.
And you're probably still learning today.
Man, yes. yeah, that never goes away. And that, it's funny. I think once you realize that this is a journey where you're always learning, it becomes really fulfilling and very fun. Because, that's where you really I'm a student of business, and I never thought that I would be, I guess, in the world of business, even before going into finance. And so I think that's the fun part about learning about coffee, how my palate has changed over the years about just in food. Oh my God, how I've gotten immersed into the music business to deal with artists and negotiating contracts and dealing with all types of sound, from backline instrumentation to the different, the different tiers of artists, and even dealing with craft cocktails, the beers, and even how you kind of learn about just the bar and how people look at craft cocktails the way we look at coffee, specialty coffee.
Sure.
And so it's been fun, man, just learning about how all these different elements are just how people do this for a living and why they love it, passionate about it.
How did the jazz come into the picture? Is that just something that was a personal passion of yours that you wanted to infuse in this business?
So yeah, that was probably the one thing that I kind of stumbled upon. So if you think about, most coffee shops have kind of the two guys who are, as a hobby, they play a guitar or something, a little bit of background, that's what it was supposed to be, Chris. Like, it wasn't supposed to be a music venue, by the way. So yeah, it's, all of a sudden I have, some guys, playing, just some good jazz and it's really great music. People are coming out. We're not charging a cover. And, I remember, one of the musicians, was willing to help me out. Say, hey, look, if you want, I'll help you with booking the entertainment for you. And so he started booking a lot of the local artists to come in. And, a lot of our customers were, again, just really loving the music. And before I realized it, is people were really appreciating the music for what it was. And they were really passionate about jazz and other forms of music. And I think that was when I realized that, okay, wow, this is a little bit more than just kind of a background thing. But the economics it wouldn't work for us to continue offering music for free. And so that's where, over the years, the music piece was something I really had to learn that one. That was a tough business. I really wanted to cut the music off, several times over the years, but it really was just too integral of a part of our business model. I mean, now I love it. It's just who we are. It's part of who we are. But before, being able to try to make sure we could afford the artists, and I think people started appreciating the music. And so for me, that's kind of where the finance comes in. The business side is supply and demand. Is that if there's really a demand for something at a certain price, then you should be able to supply it. And so we started our very first, cover charge years ago. I think after our first year business, like $3 to $5. And I remember people balked at it, like, why are you charging a cover of $3? It's $5. How dare you? We didn't charge music. Nobody charges music for cover charges. And, I look back on it, I'm like, man, here we are today charging, $15 a cover charge to bring in these really superb artists, and we're selling out pretty much almost every weekend now. And people are hitting us up, to perform.
Yeah, you've got national recording artists coming into your shop. From what I see, you've got some pretty big names.
Yeah, I mean, one of my greatest memories was just seeing Grammy-nominated Christian Scott come through and perform, and just did an amazing job. Just you start realizing that the same way as we're passionate about coffee and the process by which it comes from the farm all the way into a cup for someone's pleasure, it's the same way musical notes hit an individual when they're sitting down. And so when you start watching your guests at a table just get immersed in the music and are transformed and just taken away, it's the same thing we love about coffee. It does the same thing. And I think that was the piece that I loved about music, is that it really allowed people to just be themselves, to be you. And
there it is.
That was the piece that I remember. Was the Christian Scott performance. Probably, I think, my fourth year in business when we got him down, and I realized, like, okay, yeah, I won't be able to cut this off. This is too magical. And so since then, we've had national recording artists, Lettucey, and even Branford Marcellus's Grammy-winning artist, jazz artist, Branford Marcellus's Great Star Stage, and the old spot, jazz legend Nina Freelon, and we've had a couple of different people that just have come through. Dion Ferris. And just so you kind of see these artists that, people really enjoy watching, or even up and coming artists. Like I just love seeing, for example, like students who graduate from, nearby North Carolina Central University, who are, undergrads, and, they're just a side man just playing for another big artist. And all of a sudden here they are on, touring, with Prince, or touring with, before he passed, touring with, CeeLo Green, which is like Marcus Anderson, who's an amazing artist that performs regularly, or Darnell Showcase Taylor, who's now on tour with, Grammy-winning artist and national, touring artist, Anthony Hamilton. So yeah, you just I love the fact that you see these young people who are equally just passionate about what they do. And yeah, they resonate with our guests and how it can just complement with coffee.
So how do you make all of the concepts work together? Because, well, first of all, before we talk about that, I just want to say that what you just talked about, like letting this develop a life of its own and kind of in a benevolent way, I suppose, impose itself on you, because maybe if you had had your way, you wouldn't have had the music component. And so it's a good thing that you didn't get your way. But a lot of owners out there might have a real death grip on the concept. And it seems like you just had a pretty open mind about how you were going to go about achieving that vision. And it wasn't so much, it has to be these vehicles that deliver this result, but you were open enough to let it happen.
Yeah. I think one thing that I kind of attribute my kind of way of thinking to is really being a dad, right? You think about how we are, for those, as a parent with a child, you can do everything you can to kind of direct your children and mold them. But at the end of the day, man, they are who they are.
Yes.
And, my daughter Nala was actually born the week before we started construction. Thank God. I remember praying that she would be born on the date they said, so that, because everything was crazy. And so when, watching Beyu grow is also like watching her. And I think there's this shared understanding that as much as I want Beyu Caffe to be what I want it to be, I think I also have to remind myself that if we're sincere about providing a place, in all coffee shops, we all have, I think, that same desire to be the place that's not home, that's not the office, that special place. And because of that, your community has to kind of dictate that a little bit. And, and I think that's the thing where if you're going to you have to be careful not to, at least too aggressively, I think kind of, demand what it's just going to be without allowing just the community to kind of help it evolve and grow again, like children. And so that's a tough balancing act, for anybody, for any entrepreneur, for any owner. And so I've definitely made my fair share of mistakes, but I think in the end, being able to try to listen to our guests, to try to, go with my gut, and to, really make the best decision I can that's in the best interest, both financially, for the business, of course, but also for the greater good of the community and for, everyone there, even sometimes when it seems like it's not going to be best for the bottom line, but I can survive and it's for the greater good. That's kind of the direction I've tried to go in. And it has served us well. I think providing a level of authenticity, is provided a level of, just various opportunities that, other places don't always get because we're so ingrained in the community. And I think for that has been, one of the biggest wins for us over time is, still being around and relevant, nearly 10 years later.
Man, well said. What were the early years like? What challenges were presented to you in the establishing of this business? Because, we're talking about this pretty glowingly. Things are right. Really rosy, but in any business, there's always behind the scenes. What were the challenges that you really needed to overcome, especially establishing Beyu?
That's a good question. I, sometimes I feel like I have to ask my wife, hey, how was I back then? Because I don't know if I just mentally block it out or what, but, clearly the hours were insane. And that's probably one thing that I don't think I would ever recommend anybody to take on all this at one time. For us, we ended up opening breakfast, lunch, and dinner, just all at one time.
Wow.
And so within a very short period of time, it was just, two guys on a guitar or something. But within, 8 months to a year, here we are rocking and rolling on the weekends. And so we're now open 6 days a week, moved to 7 days a week. And so I remember just taking kind of some power naps in the car, going from open to close. So, trying to find staffing and leaders, people that I could trust, because I didn't have a general manager at the time. That was definitely a huge hurdle, because it really was just all on me, and that's not healthy. I think, I'm lucky that I had a supportive wife, who was, just understanding. But, eventually it got to a point where I remember, when Nala was 2, I realized family is just way too important, that I need to be able to do a better job somehow to balance family life with my work life. And so I remember closing on Sundays and saying, we're not going to open on Sundays, not until I can find an assistant manager or someone that can help me. So that was at least one challenge of making sure I kept a balance with family life. The other was cash flow. Like you're just moving so fast. You have no way of just really being able to assess how you're actually doing. And so for me, it was always a matter of, every time an invoice came in, I would write a check and I would write it off. And, even if things were slow, especially in the early years where we were trying to build the business, and summer was just terrible. I remember after our first year, and we were doing fairly decent because we opened December in 2009. And so we're rocking. And here it is in 2010. And we actually hit the ground running pretty nicely. It was wintertime, everybody's drinking coffee. We did a good job kind of letting the market know we were coming to town. So people really supported us. But right after Mother's Day, which was graduation day weekend in, Durham, we saw like a huge, 20% drop in sales the very next week. And I remember not, thinking it was just a blip, and it happened again. And then again, about the third week, here it is. I had to adjust staffing and adjust everything. And that one almost hurt us even within the first 6 months, because it's not like I had a lot of capital. And so being able to manage cash flow better in the beginning, to know exactly, what's coming in, what's going out, what bills are owed, having some sort of system was my greatest challenge in the beginning. And I remember one of my investors and one of my mentors telling me, as a reminder, when your cash is gone, it's game over. Mm-hmm. And I think that's all he had to say. It woke me up. I just thought about Pac-Man and just thought about game over. It's like, okay, I don't have any more coins to play the game. Yeah. So at that point, it just, again, the universe worked out the way it was supposed to. I ended up meeting a friend who recommended a pastor who did part-time bookkeeping work. And so he created a Google spreadsheet, which was pretty simple. All it was, hey, top line, this is how much you have in your bank. This is how much money is coming from your credit card receivables. And then here are all your expenses and checks that you've written. And here's the bottom number. And if it's negative, you don't have enough money to do it. And if it's positive, you're good. So every day I would just go in and update that sheet with my bank account, just reconciling my bank statement. And that's when I realized, like, oh boy, if everybody cashes the checks that I've just written, I won't have any money. I'll go out of business. And so that's when I had to begin negotiating terms with my vendors. And that's when I learned about 15 net pay and 30-day net terms. And so I was able to build credit with my vendors, because I had been with them now for well over 6 months. And so, I had established some credibility with them, and I was always paying on time. And so that got me through my first summer from going out of business. So yeah, man, cash flow, that is the secret, I think, to almost any business, is know your cash flow.
So in this process, you're looking at this and saying, well, I'm going to go out of business if I have these people cash these checks. And, surely this is something that was somewhat on your mind, but, not to put it in a really harsh way, but what kind of, at the moment, blinded you to this? What would you say caused you to not look at these things as a very real thing that needed focus?
Yeah, good question. So I think part of it is just not knowing. And, you look at your bank account and it's like, well, my bank account is positive, so I'm doing just fine. And I think that's just we said earlier about how you're always learning in business. And this was one of the early stages of learning, that, I've learned, you just never make the assumptions with entrepreneurs. And so I think you're right. Just focusing on customer service, focusing on making sure the reviews are great, focusing on making sure that the coffee is made correctly. And not to mention, I'm the barista, or, I'm the cashier, I'm the manager on duty. I'm making sure that I enter and do payroll. I'm answering the phones. I'm answering emails. I'm writing checks. I'm meeting with the vendors. I'm picking out what wines we're going to do. I'm talking to make sure the artists are coming in on this weekend and getting paid, checking out the inventory, placing the orders. it's just, just the nature of running the business. And I think I didn't realize how much I had taken on, in the beginning. And so, just the nature of the day to day. I didn't think about the financial side of the business. I was just more focused on the operations side of it, and the sales and marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're now in a place where you're not wearing, it's 10 years later, obviously, you're not wearing as many hats. You've got people who are delegated to take care of business, and you're a leader of those people, and those people are responsible for systems that keep everything running. In terms of leadership, what do you expect from yourself as far as setting an example for others to follow and to inspire them to do good work?
So when I think about that in terms of, how do you lead by example? One of my earlier mentors, and again, that's probably something I recommend to any of your listeners, anybody starting a business, is don't be afraid to ask somebody, find somebody who's done this before, and just try to meet with them quarterly. I mean, if you can monthly, great. But I was fortunate to have some amazing mentors over the years. So, one in particular at the very beginning, she and her brother owned several restaurants, and she would tell me, you need to know your non-negotiables. What are things you will not negotiate on? And, it's funny, I'm thinking about this. Well, what are my non-negotiables? I mean, is there thou shalt not steal? I mean, it's kind of like, your non-negotiables. It's kind of simple. But what she was meant, though, what are your core values? And now, almost 10 years later, we have our mission statement in terms of what's our purpose as, the ultimate community gathering place. And that is our mission statement. And we make sure, everybody knows that. And when new people, our new hires, our new team members are coming in, I'll stop and say, hey, look, what's the mission statement? Do you know it? And if not, okay, I need to make sure you understand why. And because of that is, they need to understand that, here it is. We have, someone like maybe Miss Shirley who, is homeless, but, when she comes in, we treat her with the level of dignity and respect that we treat the venture capitalists that are sitting, 3 tables down on a business deal. People who come in and they have money to spend, unless they're causing a disturbance or, unless for some, rare circumstance, this is their place to be you. And I think that has really served us well because everybody comes in with that understanding of the ultimate community gathering place. And you're right. I think that's one thing that I've just lived, and practiced just more easily because that is the essence of Beyu Caffe. But then the core values, I think we've developed and evolved over time with the nature of great people that have come through our doors and really help solidify, what we really are about as an organization, as a culture. And for that is, we make sure we go beyond customer service. And not, of course, in retail, that can be hard to do sometimes, but still, that's what we're about. We are about, teamwork always. We realize that some places, some people just work better by themselves and aloners. We're really team oriented and we expect that. So people who don't pitch in and don't help out, they don't necessarily really last long. Financial accountability means growth. We are really, that's from just my finance days. I love smart people and I love people smarter than me. I mean, I want smart people. I want to teach people, make sure that they know we're going to hold them financially accountable. The reason we're able to take on this opportunity, at Duke is because of, our ability to and grow is because we've been able to hold each other accountable financially, especially over the past 2 years, bringing in, just smarter and greater leadership as well as we've grown. No shortcuts, really having pride in what we do. And then it's funny, the one that everybody loves the most is, no ego, just be you. Mm. And, we even have a little tagline. We say, unless you're an asshole, then be you someplace else. and I think, that really is the essence of, no ego because, it's not about us. It's not about me. It's not about you. It really is about the greater good, the greater community. And it's so easy to lose sight of that, especially in today's society. And so I think a lot of times it's reminding the people that come in that, look, I get it. Things happen, especially things outside of work, but let's try to make sure we support each other. Remember, it's not about us. Let's make sure we're trying to do the job at hand, that we're trying to do something better for the community, for each other, and let's have fun while we work. And I think over the years, we've been able to just really develop a great culture of people, of an organization, which in the past 2 years has really skyrocketed. I think as I've become a lot more purposeful in finding people around those core values now that we've really solidified them, like 2 years ago. And so now we preach to our core values. We preach to our mission statement. We preach to our culture. And, you hear a lot of these organizations and these companies and these books say, what is it? Culture beats strategy for breakfast. Culture eats strategy for breakfast, or beat strategy for breakfast.
Yeah.
But it really is so much about that that's the one thing I wish I had known when I first started, the importance of finding the right people and building the right culture, because the right culture will be there and they will help you define what you want to do to figure things out. And so, I think that's probably the biggest reason for our longevity and our growth.
So I imagine with all that you have going on, of course, talking about those values and talking about your mission is, like you said, it's your main mode of keeping things together and having the right people there. It's got to be the same kind of thing that when you were in that position of just, getting buried in operations and not able to see the financials. And for a lot of people that are delegated to take care of booking or to take care of the wait staff or whatever it may be that is on their plates, it must be hard to always have that in mind. And so that just really is great that it's a constant stream of reminding, because I imagine it's especially with the 4 models all at once, easy to just get buried and feel like, what am I even doing, and forget about the mission statement.
Yeah. So it's funny, right? If all this, we're actually in the process of printing it out for all these years. Because as much as we practice and we preach, it's like, wow, we're actually printing it out. And it's like putting on the door, everybody sees it on the way out. And it is, I think that's the nature of business. And I think that's also still what, separates businesses that sometimes grow faster from those who don't, in terms of being able to try to find that balance. And, looking back on it now, I realized being able to make time. And that's the thing that sometimes business owners, and myself included when I first started, you feel like there's never enough time. And I think there's one thing that at least for me, that I've kind of, made it a goal that anytime I feel like I don't have enough time for something, then I do what I can to try to make myself to create more time to make a right decision, so that I don't feel hurried. Of course, there are times you got to make a quick decision, and
Sure.
Of course you do that. But, again, I think that's why I close on Sundays, to make sure I don't lose sight of, my family time. Or, I started working out about when I was going through the development project to move into our new home. I remember that at that point, like soon after, I really went hard, started, working out with a trainer. And, I lost things like close to about 60 pounds.
Wow.
And part of that was just really making sure I made time for my wellness and well-being, just my mental state, and just for health. And so I think the ability to start forcing yourself to have balance allows you to make smarter decisions. And I think that's the one thing, is so often we feel hurried, and if you feel tired and continuously you feel like there's just never enough time. And a lot of times that can lead to stress and it leads to bad decisions. And of course your staff can pick up on that. Mm-hmm. And so I think being able to take care of yourself is so important. I can tell you right now, that is by far one of the greatest competitive advantages you will ever have over someone else, is that if you know how to take care of yourself, take care of your mental state, so that when you come in, you're coming in with a smile. Like that alone is saying, hey, how was your day? How did it go last night? Or when someone, Jesus, today, I had to work a shift today, filling in, and one of our staff members, great guy, he's been with us for over 3 years, and he gets a little flustered, and today get a little flustered and just throw the whole thing of wrench on both of us, all over my leg. It was like in the dish pit, and it's just like, okay, I am covered in wrench. In the trash can is literally 10 centimeters away. It's right there, but okay. So, and you end up laughing about it, and and that's the thing about, I just noticed is, I think being able to take care of myself and put things in perspective and have that balance, it allows me to have fun with my staff, allows me to have fun with my leadership team. And so, if you're not having fun in your business, man, I'm telling you, work on that, because that I lost that at one point, Chris. I mean, that was the one thing I remember getting to a point where it wasn't fun anymore. And we didn't have the right culture. I was stressed all the time, but, being able to work on myself and started remembering why I'm in this from the very beginning, what we talked about, kind of the rosy picture, it really has propelled our business in the past couple of years.
Excellent. Speaking of culture and values, some of the things that are central to your values are diversity, community, positivity. And I wonder if you can speak a little bit more about those things and, what they mean to you, but also how do you see, or how do you make sure that the business is affecting change and providing those things in real time?
Yeah. So, the nature of kind of diversity and inclusivity, for me, it just kind of stems from my upbringing. I went to, ironically, it even starts from when I was in elementary school, where when I went into first grade to an elementary school in Georgia, within 7 years, it was, say maybe 90 to 95% white. It was part of this minority to majority program, in the 80s. And then again, in 7, 8 years, it was predominantly black. You had this thing of white flight, where a lot of the white residents moved out of the neighborhoods, they moved out of the schools. And so, again, kids are smart. They noticed a makeup change in neighborhoods and in schools. And so when I graduated in 7th grade, going to high school, my high school was just predominantly all black. It was, 98% black. And had a fun time. Love my high school. It was culturally rich, culturally vibrant, marching band, parties. We had fun. And all of a sudden, a mentor at church ended up taking me on a bus ride, or a car ride. It was like, look, have you thought about schools that you're going to go to, universities? And, I wrote him a list after he finally got off to me of like 3 times. Like, look, you need to write a list of where you're going to go to school my junior year. And so my list, all 7 of the 10 universities that I listed, they were all HBCUs, historically black colleges, universities, all in the Southeast, because that's what I knew, especially with the marching band culture. And so I think the other 3 were just because I heard of them. Harvard, Princeton, and of course Duke, because my chemistry teacher was a Duke graduate. And so we took a car ride up 85 North from Georgia all the way to North Carolina. And we visited Davidson College, Warford College, UNC, which, I'm glad he went over to Duke, and NC State. And we visited all these universities. And when I saw Duke University, I fell in love with it. And it was interesting being out there because, I saw a lot of I saw the campus, even though it's predominantly white, I saw a lot of different pockets of just international students, and I was outside of a bubble. And I think that experience all the way from childhood to college, and then I went into, of course, going into New York, where leaving the South, it wasn't necessarily black and white, but more so Irish and Jewish and Catholic and Puerto Rican and Mexican and Chinese or Korean, Jamaican, Haitian. And it was very culturally centric in New York. And so that whole life experience made me realize how much we have in common, that down south, we are so easily defined by the color of our skin. We define each other that way. I mean, turn on the news, I guarantee you'll hear something about it tonight. And at the end of the day, we all bleed red. And so often, I think that was, for me, how do you find a way to bring people together? Because at the end of the day, we all love coffee. We all love great music. And we all love great service. But so often we allow ourselves to be divisive. We allow ourselves to be separated, simply because of how we look. And yet we can accept and appreciate different cultures, respect that, but still come together. And through music and through coffee, I found those to be great elements to do that. And of course, food. And it helps even more if you get a little tipsy, I guess, over a cocktail. And so those kind of created the models of Beyu Caffe, is that they all flow together, because I think that was the sincerity of wanting to bring people together. And so coffee was one medium, jazz was another, cocktails, beer and wine was one, and so was just great food, with, the sophisticated soul, menu concept. And so, yeah, all those pieces together kind of highlighted the diversity that I wanted to bring, that could bring people together.
Excellent. So then that's just growing.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's nice is as you see Durham grows, yeah, we're growing with it. And, market conditions still make it a little difficult as things kind of change. But yeah, I think because Durham was also a really great city to test this concept, because Durham, North Carolina is just really a great, culturally rich, culturally vibrant city. That for the most part, demographics wise, very half and half when you think about along the racial lines. You have, Duke University on one side, my alma mater, but you also have North Carolina Central University, historically black college university, like on the other side, like 5-10 minutes away, if that. And so right here in the heart of downtown, you just have this great, just hodgepodge of people where everybody just gets along. Drive around, man, you'll see a white guy, black guy, dapping up and, just hanging out. It's beautiful, man. I love Durham. And I think we're seeing more of that around the country. And so how do you find a place where people feel comfortable? And I remember, hearing conversations of being able to open up our spot where, one, it's a place that people felt comfortable, from all walks of life. And so, so often, again, being, the only minority in a boardroom, in finance, I know what it feels like when you look around and nobody looks like you, or in a classroom at Duke. And so, but I also know what it's like to be the majority at my high school. And it's like, just everybody looks like me. And so I think being able to try to provide a spot that can draw in people from all walks of life so that everybody can feel comfortable. And again, that's our mission. That's our goal, is to create that place. Most people are, I say most people, but I think too often we see, well, this is what I want, and they're welcome, but this is who we are. Mm-hmm. And ironically, my major at Duke was a sociology major and an economics major. I had no idea that I'd be utilizing my major as a study of society, of bringing, class, race, and gender together, along with economics of supply and demand. And so that's it. When you think about how do we study our society, how do we bring together people from different classes, people from different races, people from different genders together in one spot? And I think that was the nature of what I wanted to create with Beyu through diversity.
That's really amazing. It just seems like you're living it by example, and it's something that we all definitely need to see more of and be inspired to do in our own businesses. And we all have an ability to reach out and affect the world around us, to be more diverse, to be more inclusive, and to sort of, especially in the coffee industry, is it's that third place. It's the one where everyone is supposed to gather, but you see a real separation. And even in cities that are pretty well integrated, there is these pockets. And I just think it's amazing that your model is actually doing it.
Thank you, Chris. And it's, again, and it comes with its challenges. It's not always easy sometimes being front and center as, say, the place that you're trying to bring in diversity, where, you speak out on certain issues, especially when it comes to race. And so, again, I understand from a business standpoint, how that can kind of feel the discomfort. And I think that I'm fortunate that I'm also surrounded by a city that's growing where Durham is also not afraid to tackle those issues. It is very, very vocal on all sides. And I think that's also why it's also why it's growing. And I think people will realize there is an economic benefit to this too, because I mean, you're also increasing your pie. And so, there's also a great win, economically and financially. And so, yeah, I think, when you think about the thing that happened with Starbucks, where the two gentlemen were arrested, just because, the young lady felt threatened. And again, my understanding is they weren't harassing anybody, or, they just sat down and they didn't buy anything. And, we get that at BU, every now and then, it's not often somebody just sits there and doesn't get anything, but that happens. And, I remember overhearing a comment one day of someone saying that could happen. What happened at Starbucks could happen anywhere. And I got to be honest, I don't see that. Like, our staff is very diverse. I mean, we got a great staff. I can't imagine any of, my white employees calling the police on, two young Black guys who would have on a typical, sweatshirt or something just because they weren't buying anything. I think there is a notion that part of the beauty of building diversity is that we also kind of conquer some of our own inherent fears, own inherent biases. And that's the beauty of what you really build as a third place, is that, let's not forget, man, coffee has been around for so long that it was part of the slave trade. I mean, it was part of, the Pope. It was the devil's drink until the Pope declared it. No, this is not the devil's drink. This is, like I said, but only, God can never make something this beautiful and pure so bad or something. And, you think about how coffee has maneuvered all throughout the history of time. And so today, I think we have a great opportunity to allow coffee to bring people together. When people want to meet for a business meeting and they may be a little bit, uncomfortable because of different upbringings, coffee has a way of bringing people together, and your place can create the atmosphere to do that. And you do that with great service. You do that with a smile. And so I think that's what we try to do with BU, is that we just simply try to make sure, again, a person come in, they can be themselves, they can be you. And it's through the music we play, it's through making sure everybody smiles and greet when they come in. And I know it sounds like that's kind of maybe some standards, but we really try to push that even in the people we hire, so that they understand and are accepting of everyone that comes in. And it's not easy, because I'll be honest, because not everybody, I think about my earlier years, and people do have biases and they don't all fit, because, that's not who we are. And so, not everybody works out. So I do realize that it's easier said than done.
Well, I'm excited to see these values being lived out in your organization, in your cafe, and also super excited for the opportunity. And we've been kind of mentioning it through the conversation that you're opening this second location, and it's on Duke University, where you went to school, and so that's got to be a pretty sweet feeling. And there's a little bit of a story behind that, isn't there?
Yeah, I think it's hilarious that when I looked at the spot that we're going to be moving into, that it was literally 20 feet from where I met my wife at the information desk when I was a student, and she was coming in her freshman year. And and so it's kind of serendipitous to kind of go back to Duke, where it really shaped my life in terms of how I also see the world, again, coming from my upbringing, and then just coming outside of my bubble and seeing just a different way, just a different perspective. And so Duke was a learning experience. It was, it was equally fun, but challenging. And so going on campus now, so for example, going back on campus where, the white population is now the minority based on the increase in international students, especially coming with a lot of the engineers and technology and computer science majors that are coming over, but also a greater influence of just people of color. And so I mean, Duke is just this beautiful microcosm of America in terms of just its diversity. And so I'm really excited to go on there to see how we can, build a community in a way that, clearly just college age students. So this younger generation, clearly where technology is, I'm sure just used more greatly. And just, how do we make an impact and again, go with the same philosophy of trying to be authentic, just be genuine and just listen to what the students are looking for. How can we provide a place where while they're on campus, they can also, be you. Mm-hmm. And, Duke does so much of that already. And I think, we're part of our grand opening event. We're bringing in an amazing artist, Kenny Wesley out of DC, along with NBC's The Voice, top 12 artist, Rayshawn Lamar, nice. Team Adam, for those who know him. And so the two of them are going to kind of celebrate our grand opening. And something like that is something we're excited about because it's going to be on the main plaza. All the students are going to be out. It's going to be fun. And that's kind of the excitement I'm hoping we can add to the campus life. Because Duke does so much for the students on campus. It's a great spot, a great school. So yeah, we're just hoping to add to that vibrancy.
I want to ask this, and this is something that in the specialty coffee industry, in circles of the news cycle and everything, the most recent thing on people's minds about Duke University and coffee has been it must have been a month and a half ago or so, maybe longer, maybe shorter, I can't remember, but there was a coffee bar on campus where something happened where two students ended up getting fired and the coffee shop cut ties. And there's a lot of bitterness and kind of animosity between both groups. And I want to just ask, what's your approach to that? Has it impacted the way you're approaching this opportunity as it's on the back of one coffee shop leaving amidst some controversy?
Yeah, I mean, so, definitely understand just, what happened before with the situation of the employees being terminated, and, with us, I know we have full rights and control over our staffing. So as do all vendors and dining venues on campus. And so, coming on campus, I think it's really important to make sure that that's one of the reasons why I want to make sure I'm listening. Making sure that when we come on campus, people are looking at it that some things, whether it's timing or whatnot, the fact that you look at, Beyu Caffe has been in business for nearly 10 years. Being a Duke alum, my wife is a Duke alum. And so we're kind of coming back on campus to hopefully build something that I think people can look at it as kind of a happy ending is that, regardless of what happened in the past, what's coming now is that, we hope, I'm hoping that the students will appreciate what we're bringing in terms of, some place that's been downtown, that's really big on diversity, that's big on inclusivity. And that because, working with Duke, that's a positive sign that, hopefully this is, regardless of what happened in the past, that this is considered kind of a happy ending that, people can be happy with the outcome, at least for what's happening today.
Awesome. We were chatting before about how you started this business with so many concepts and such a dynamic range, and now you are expanding, but you're narrowing down your focus. So this is going to be like a very coffee-focused venue. What do you have planned for this cafe?
Oh, wow. So that's probably the greatest excitement for me is I started this entire journey just around coffee, and it's expanded into so much more. And so the fact that I can go back, just being able to focus on coffee again is exciting. And so, one of the things is that we've always maintained a level of quality and excellence with our coffee, but being able to try to do more around whether it's hosting barista competitions or being able to even do coffee with music on the plaza, but also coming up with various types of specialty coffee beverages. One thing that if I look at the trends, and the fun part about being on campus is that young people have a way of kind of setting the trends, especially within the coffee industry. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really excited to hear and listen. What are they liking, especially what's already on the market. And so, for example, when you think about the explosion of nitro cold brew, I mean, who in the world would have thought this? Again, coffee in a keg with nitrogen, like really? And 10 years ago, man, that no one knew about that stuff. And so, or even pour overs. When I started this, no one was doing really pour overs. It was maybe French press. And so I think now I'm excited to kind of see, well, what are the newest trends? Even when you start looking at kind of the aerations of some of the iced coffee beverages. So I'm noticing a lot of the foam-like texture drinks, even with Starbucks and like nitro cold brews. And so right now I'm really looking at kind of an experimental phase right now. And that's just so fun, man. It's what can we experiment with? What are people looking at? And how can we be a bit more innovative with coffee that we're not able to do at our downtown location?
Sounds exciting. So it's called Beyu, but not Cafe.
No, it's called Beyu Blue. And a lot of that is giving homage to the Blue Devils of where we started, and giving us a great opportunity to kind of open Beyu Blue. And so when my wife actually came up with the name, because we wanted something that we felt was, of course, Beyu and always reflective of Beyu, the place you can be you. But also, giving homage to the organization that allowed us to, try this concept out. And so, we're bringing our own flavor and style with it. So it really is our prototype, our model of what we're bringing. And so, for example, we're working with a good friend and local artist, Artie Barksdale, who's bringing in a mural installation art piece that he has a couple of different artists artwork around our cafe that kind of brings it to life. And so he's doing that within our space. We worked with Duke to pick out the flooring and the light fixtures so that it fits this new concept of what we're looking for. And so we had a lot of control over what we wanted for this new concept to build. And now with kind of being on campus and being able to kind of go back to my alma mater, where I still know a lot of the professors, a lot of the student organizations. My wife and I are both, members of fraternity and sorority that are still active on campus. And so, that again, other access to get involved and work with the students to see what they want. So yeah, it's really a way to have fun and just kind of figure out, what's trendy, what's new, what can we do? What's some cool new things we can test out?
Cool. It'll be exciting to see that take shape. This whole conversation has really been inspiring to just see the breadth of your business take shape and learn more about the story and your values and the foundation of it. I'm super excited for the opportunities that you have here. Doing this for so long, you're going to be picking up a lot of lessons along the way, probably too many to count, no doubt. I wonder if you would share maybe what are the top lessons that you've learned that you think other cafe owners would really benefit from?
One, it's so, I guess some kind of boil down into my core values. One, I would say is really making sure you define what your, and I said this earlier, but what are your non-negotiable? What are your core values? What is it that, again, you hire, you fire on that? Because when you bring people into your organization, I think you really got to be clear in understanding that you're bringing people in that are going to fit the core values that you set. And then once they come in, they're in, you own it. They are part of your team, and you have to do everything you can to make sure you make that relationship work, unless, you've done everything you can, it doesn't. But so I think really honing in on those core values. The other is making sure that you really watch people and make sure you find the right people and that they're in the right seat. So often I think when I started off, it was always, I felt like somebody maybe wasn't getting it, or it just wasn't, okay, this person just isn't working. But all of a sudden when I moved, someone who just wasn't really great in the kitchen, but when they moved them onto the floor, the server, they were great.
Yes.
One young lady I hired, she worked at Panera Bread and wanted to be a baker, and she wanted to work in the kitchen. And I'm like, baker? Wait, that means you love working with your hands. That means you're really about precision. You ever thought about being a barista? And when I say Kat is one of the best baristas around, she's owned she just owned it. She loves coffee. She loves making great coffee. She's great with customers. And so now somebody who's going to be a baker and working in the kitchen is now one of our best baristas. And so I think, again, just being able to find people, make sure they're in the right seat. And, I guess, outside of that, I guess the other lesson that I learned too is so if there's one thing that I could share was when I was at my lowest moment after we, moved from our old location to our new location. We were over budget, because of an issue with the contractor. So we got a new contractor. And everything it was almost doors were going to close if we didn't open with this, within this week. So, it's one of those things where payroll is due on Tuesday. I have to open by Thursday so that I can open for the weekend and get the weekend revenue to pay payroll. If not, I've already maxed out everything. I'm done. And you get to a point where, you know what, at the end of the day, man, I do the best that I can. And if I do the best that I can, I'm good to people, and I have absolutely no regrets in how I live day to day, then enjoy the journey. And, you leave unto the Lord and the universe the rest. And that's the one lesson that I learned 2 years ago. And since then, man, this journey has been so amazing. I mean, what we've done in the past 2 years has been 3 times as much over the first 6. And wow. I think that's the thing that I've learned is if there's one piece of advice, make sure you're living that life that you're doing the best you can. You're making all the best decisions you can. Ask for help. And in the end, if you're doing everything, trust the universe and trust God is going to work everything else out. And I think that's when I realized that if it was meant to be and we end up having to shut our doors, God forbid, and you know what, I'll pick myself up and I guess it was not meant to be. I've done everything I could. So, so be it. And I think that's the one lesson or the least advice that, if anybody I would give is enjoy this journey, have fun with what you do, leave unto the Lord and the universe for the rest.
That is really good. We're not in 100% control, and we'd like to think we are.
And 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 I think once and that's I don't know, sometimes I feel like that really is the secret to life. When you learn to let go of the control part and enjoy, you realize then you actually you're in line with how everything works. You really are in line with life, and that is the ultimate lesson that I really learned from when my father passed and I started this journey. I am doing what I'm doing at Beyu Caffe after almost 10 years, about to go onto Duke's campus, all because I was faced with someone close to me dying. And, and I never went to funerals or anything. That was my first time really experiencing, someone close to me passing. And, when you really realize that tomorrow's not guaranteed, what happened to me a couple of years ago where I almost went out of business was kind of a similar reminder that at the end of the day, man, we all gonna go. Unless if you know how to cheat death, let me know. I guess write a book. otherwise, we all gonna go someday. So live life, enjoy it. Don't sweat the small stuff. Don't take it too seriously. Do the best you can. You'll figure it out. And, you realize if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And I think once you start letting it go and start kind of getting in line and just enjoying it, it's amazing how the opportunities just seem to present themselves. The people you need help or where you need help, it somehow comes about. And that's how I was able to find the right general manager when I needed it. And after that, I found the perfect assistant manager and perfect shift supervisor and this perfect person. And we've just been picking our teams just like that of how people. And it's been the weirdest way, too, of how we find them. And through referrals, or I just happen to see somebody. I mean, one kid ended up coming in, applying for a cashier job. And our serving position, he had no serving experience. And just like, yeah, this is too much to learn with no serving experience. So I'm afraid this isn't going to work, man, because, you got to know coffee and food and cocktails in the bar. So I was like, yeah, I'm sorry, this isn't going to work. And so really nice kid. He walks out the door. I glance and I look down at his resume. I'm like, wait, what? This kid graduated from NC State. He was an engineer. He had IT background. He was brilliant. And at the time, we were in the process trying to figure out some a database and create a database and start getting some systems in place from a technological standpoint with our music program. And I was like, wait, this dude is perfect. And again, it's the right person in the right seat. And you could tell he was a good kid. He was just his manners. He was well spoken. He was just a good kid. You could just feel it from him. But he wasn't meant to be a server. And so I remember running after him in the street and was like, hey, I think I have something else that would be great for you. And yeah, man, now he's being promoted to one of our shift supervisors, and he's added tremendous value in our company. And that's kind of an example of just how we've been finding people. It's been fun. You're able to see things a bit more clearly when you learn to relax and just let go and get in line and just one day at a time figure it out. And that's why the balance I mentioned earlier is so important, because if you don't have that balance, if you don't take that time, whether it's a run, whether it's yoga, whether it's going to work out, whether it's just taking a Saturday off and playing some music and turning the TV off, just take some time for yourself to clear your mind. No emails, no phone calls, just take time, spend time with family, the kids, or if you want to go on a walk or what, just take some time. And that's where innovation comes. That's where you begin to figure out the problems. That's how you begin to problem solve. Man, the journey is great, and you'll figure it out. And if it ain't meant to be, hey, you did everything you could. Ain't meant to be, just move it on. You'll be all right.
Yeah, that's powerful advice. I have a final question for you. After 10 years of this journey for you, almost 10 years, what is it that brings you the most joy and fulfillment from operating and owning Beyu Caffe?
Wow. I'm trying to, that's because there's so many great things. So I'm trying to which one gives me the most fulfillment? Wow. So now, like I told you, after everything that's happened the past 2 years, and we're on a whole different trajectory right now. The greatest fulfillment are the people that I'm sharing this journey with. Like, the cool part about building culture and building a great organization, and why the commercials and all that stuff say people first and you're a people come. But I guess the root of that and the essence of that is you're going through this journey, you're going through the challenges and the obstacles, but also the highlights. To be able to share that with people who get as much enjoyment and the same level of satisfaction as you do is priceless. And that has been the greatest level of satisfaction for me, because of that, we do so much within the community. And so whether it's how we do stuff for a particular school or a particular organization, or whether it's there's so much stuff that we do in the community. And so all of it always is shared back to the people who share it with us. So I think, building that culture and you're right, and that actually extends beyond just the people you work with. That's why community is so important, because the success of going on Duke's campus, as an example, this is such a shared success for everybody on staff, our leadership team, the community. Like, our staff is excited. The faculty and the people who knew me as a student on campus are excited. The community and the people who come in every day who follow us are excited. That joy, man, that's priceless, man. I never would have guessed this would be my outcome graduating from college, going into the world of Wall Street. And so, that's why I say building culture, building community, you can share that success with the people in the community. That's been the greatest fulfillment of this journey.
Dorian, thank you so much for this conversation, for making time in the midst of this really busy season for you and your team. It's been really great talking to you, and it's personally, and I know a lot of people are probably thinking the same thing, this has just been a real deep conversation about real stuff and real life and business and things that extend beyond business. I think this is just a real lesson in living, and I appreciate your candor and being open about your experiences. So thank you so much. How can people find your company and stay up to date with you, reach out and keep tabs on the progress you're making?
Sure. Well, clearly, definitely follow us on Facebook, our Instagram. Beyu Caffe is BEYU CAFFE. Yes, to this day, I put 2 F's in cafe for Italian for coffee, giving homage to the birthplace of really the espresso and the rise and growth of coffee houses. And so, BEYUCaffe.com, but Facebook, Instagram are the best way to follow us and learn more about what we're doing.
Excellent. Well, thank you once again. This was really a treat to talk with you, and can't wait to see things take shape and that grand opening happen.
Oh, great. Thanks, Chris, also for having me, man. This has also been nice to just step away and enjoy just a good conversation. So, thanks for having me.
Well, I got to say that after this interview, I felt very electric, I would say. This was such a inspiring is a word, but also I'd say motivating episode where you're talking to a guest, you hear the story and you hear the heart coming through in the words they use to describe both the past and the future. And this is the kind of perspective that I think we all need to simply listen to again and absorb into the way that we do business. Everything from letting the business kind of take on a life of its own so that it accomplishes your mission, but maybe in a different way than you thought it was going to, like it happened with the jazz, which is such a great feature of the cafe now, to simply pursuing equity and diversity on your staff and, having a cafe that truly represents a sense of place in, the shop itself, so that all people not only are welcome, but feel welcome too. And there's a ton of stuff. I don't want to go through the whole episode again. I definitely recommend that you listen to it again. There is a wealth of knowledge here. And I hope that you give Beyu Blue a visit as well. If you're in the Durham area, don't forget that on the day of this airing, on the 31st, it just so happened to work out that this is airing on the date of their grand opening. So how was that for serendipity? Now you can stay up to date with what Dorian and his team are doing at Beyu Caffe and Beyu Blue by going to Beyu Caffe. That's BEYUCAFFE.com, and also on Twitter and Instagram. It's the same spelling, Beyu Caffe, for both Twitter and Instagram. Just super thankful to have Dorian on the show. Thank you so much, Dorian, for sharing your story, your wisdom, your advice, and just inspiring us all with the way to be in specialty coffee. Thank you. Now, if you want the show notes for this episode, you can go to keystotheshop.com. And of course, on the sidebar, there's a place to enter your email address. When you do that, you'll be signed up to receive the e-newsletter that comes out every week or so. And it has the show notes in it. So every episode, you can get the show notes, which are the main takeaways, and links mentioned throughout the episode, resources and things like that, sent to your inbox directly. Very convenient. If you're not in a position to take notes on what's being said, it's going to be in the notes. And again, just enter your email address at keystotheshop.com, and that'll be it. So if you want to reach out to me directly, you can do so by emailing Chris at keystotheshop.com. That's CHRIS at keystotheshop.com. I would really love to hear from you if you have questions, comments, or feedback, or if you want to explore what it would be like to work with Keys to the Shop Consulting to help you develop your leadership team, management, operations, and quality control in your cafe. Chris at keystotheshop.com. Look forward to hearing from you. And that's it for today's show. It was quite a big show, in my opinion, and I hope that you really enjoyed Dorian and his story. I know I did. So thank you for joining me today. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.